It's been getting a bit worse lately. Have you noticed? The sting of a good meme. Just a little less potent. I can't make sense of it. Not in the slightest bit. What happened to us?
This one's good. It's like, this summer, I'm finally gonna travel, and then my bank account... Isn't that good? That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
No, it can't be. It's not. It can't be the memes. I love memes. I've always loved memes. iPhone, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram. Is it me?
Are memes dying? Well, it's a little bit complicated. As we talked about in my analysis of Generation Z's ever-changing, constantly evolving sense of humor, we discussed how oversaturation seems to have become the main factor and motivator for the trends of comedy within younger generations. Because of this, I no longer think that it is simply a matter of joke formats dying out quickly or punchlines dying out quickly. I believe that it has now spread to mediums of comedy. Based on my observation, whatever gravity or lack thereof that holds, I think memes have an expiration date, and I think it's coming up. I think that memes have been stuck for a while in this life cycle of comedy. It starts with sincere memes, then ironic, then post-ironic, and then a sincere meme occurs. But that life cycle has been it's been ramping up in speed. It's been going faster and faster and faster around, and I think that format has been rapidly changing so quickly that it's broken a little bit, and now we're stuck bouncing back and forth between, I think it's there. They've been stuck bouncing between ironic and post-ironic. I think that simple vanilla memes no longer cut it for people. Or if they do, I think that people are getting tired of it. I will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but while we're on the subject of dying mediums, I think that stand-up comedy is another good example. I think you'll find that a lot of the younger generations are less and less interested in the entire format of stand-up comedy. I think whereas in different generations growing up probably would have invested in vinyls or cassettes with recordings of stand-up on them, I think you'll find that a lot of the kind of TikTok, YouTube generation does not use stand-up or stand-up comedians or stand-up clips as their primary or preferred form of comedy. They don't want it delivered through the format of someone standing on stage who is instructed to tell jokes or stories to make them laugh. No matter the medium of comedy, Generation Z and, to a smaller extent, Generation Alpha tend to be averse to forms of media or art or entertainment that they perceive as formulaic. The millennials dealt with this when it came to the kind of hipsterism, where it was something is mainstream, something is too popular, therefore I do not like it on principle of me simply not wanting to be a part of the mainstream. I think that is a fundamental experience of growing up for most people, and I think that transcends generations, but I think how it's manifesting in Generation Z is with their comedy. And there are only so many ways that you can subvert a genre in a sense before it no longer is recognizable as what it previously was. When something has had so much satire and parody made of it that you no longer recognize or remember the original source material, that medium has fundamentally changed. I believe this is something that already has happened with stand-up, and I believe it's something that is happening with memes. As somebody who used to go on social media purely to be entertained by memes and used to save them and send them.
It's a blursid dog.
Okay.
Oh, I want to go to
Check out this blursid doggo, perhaps, before you continue on your scrolling.
That dog is blursid.
I noticed my interest in it kind of dwindling, and after some conversations with other people I knew, I noticed that I wasn't the only one. Looking at my own phone, most of the memes I have are either things that I thought if I sent someone that it would make them uncomfortable, which for me that's funny, or it would be so incredibly unfunny that my friends and I would be able to laugh at how unfunny it is. And because of the fact that I'm really only enjoying these memes ironically and socially, I believe that really says a lot about the current state of memes. And the people that I used to enjoy sincere memes with back in the day have turned away from that format of comedy. And what seems to have replaced it is short form video content. As much as a lot of people really hate TikTok, you can't deny the fact that it's had a major impact on nearly every social media site.
Am I talking too fast for you or something?
Dude, you are such a loser. Sir, can you just take me to my destination, please? Well, maybe I'll take you to hell so we can see my wife. Susan!
Miss Piggy! That's my Kermit I can't.
So at a New Year's party, a friend of mine gave me a bath bomb. It's peppermint from what they said, so I'm gonna try it out today.
Instagram, which was initially a photo-exclusive social media website, is now using their algorithm as motivation for content creators to utilize their short-form video content feature, the Instagram Reels or whatever. And that form of content is pretty shamelessly ripping off TikTok, which before that was a pretty shameless ripoff of Vine. I'm sure it goes back. I'm not saying this is the first thing to have ever occurred.
I touched the wall.
And I acknowledge that this is not the first time that Instagram has used videos, but it is the first time that they've made a sort of TikTok-like feature an essential part of their app. In addition to Instagram, YouTube has its YouTube Shorts, but it's essentially just TikTok. These are all indicators that entertainment is moving in a new direction. And what previously made it almost impossible to do what memes do, which is taking copyrighted material and copy and pasting it with slight variations to accentuate the punchline, are now being allowed. TikTok was one of the first websites to realize that using clips from things, using copyrighted material, is actually greatly beneficial to the original creator, whereas YouTube does everything in its power to keep anyone from using anyone else's intellectual property. And so in that climate of hyper anti-copyright practices, it made sense to use still images, because you wouldn't get your account removed for using a picture from a movie as part of a meme. But now that music and audio bites are now being allowed in this short form content, there's no longer really the need to just use still images. You get a meme and you look at that meme and you cut it in two halves, and now what do you have? You have two pieces of what makes the meme what it is. You have relatability, which is the situation presented, or that's happened to you, or you've seen that happen, whatever. That's the relatability. And you look at the other half of it, and that's the picture or the phrase or something you've seen before. It references something. And that's the familiarity. And because the meme is built on these two pillars that are woven into the format, the medium, the identity of memes, when those no longer are effective forms of comedy, you now have the decaying life and soon to be death of memes. You look at relatability now and you say just the general life experience has too much variety from person to person, and this makes relatability a less effective form of comedy. In my hit video, How the Internet Gaslights You, we talked about how algorithms vary each individual user's experience with the internet as a whole. For instance, my brother and I, we live in the same country, we speak the same language, we live in the same state, the same city. In fact, we live in the same house. We grew up with the same parents, we're the same gender, we're only a couple years apart, and yet the internet culture that he is familiar with and what it is that he's recommended on social media platforms like YouTube or, TikTok, they're completely different from one another. And you imagine how different it is for two people that are so similar. Imagine how different it is for two people that aren't the same or are less the same than as he and I are. This is not to say that it's impossible to make relatable content now, but that the common ground that we all do share tends to be a little bit more shallow and a little less interesting than it may have been at some point. And when they do find that common ground, it's probably not all that, funny. In the same vein, meme's second dependent, familiarity, also struggles to keep up. You consider the fact that today, as you've been watching this, there's 5 million new television shows that you haven't seen, probably increasing by 3 billion every second. You consider there's 15 quadrillion songs you haven't heard yet. You haven't heard, but someone else has heard some of those. And Ohio versus Alabama is a very important event, and you were unaware of it. And so the concept now of a mainstream media, you just don't have. It's just hard. It's harder to find now. You don't have that probably as much as you did. So then you go and you think about what even is mainstream anymore? Is that even a relevant concept in 2022? And I say that it's, while it may exist, I think to the broad public, mainstream is now essentially the lowest common denominator. So those who are united in such a grand majority are likely participating in content made to appease those who don't care as much.
And that reward will be your family will cease to be harassed in any way by the German military during the rest of our occupation of your country. You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
Yes.
You have detected 0 multiversal trespassers, so get on your phones, scour the internet, and Scooby-Doo this.
You're telling us what to do, even though all this is kind of your mess. I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this.
I couldn't stop laughing at this part, especially since I thought he was going to say Scooby-Doo this crap, like in the trailer, so I wasn't expecting him to say Scooby-Doo this shit instead. Lumfow.
Don't you feel silly?
Setting this up with the trailer was absolutely hilarious. I laughed for a good 5 seconds. A genius way to subvert the expectations of a joke.
Don't you feel stupid?
I remember watching this scene in theaters. We had the entire room to ourselves. Literally no one else was in the theater. We laughed our asses off as much as possible when this scene came up. Lamau.
Don't you feel a little ashamed?
This is definitely going on the Christmas card.
And I'd say memes have always been made to be shared amongst people. There's a little bit of an inherent sense of elitism. I saw that meme first. That meme's for normies, this meme's for cool guys. And so then the content in the format of memes has to become increasingly more and more niche. Consider the fact that in the original Star Wars movies, there was a 3-year gap in between the release of 4, 5, and 6, and then there was a 6-year gap between the original trilogy and the prequels. Meanwhile, since 2013, there have been 2 to 3, sometimes more Marvel movies that have come out every year, and that doesn't even include shows and miniseries. And those are all essential for the understanding of the next film from a lore perspective. And even if you manage to keep up with all of the new franchises, the style of, reference humor has become increasingly overused and thus less effective as a form of comedy.
Hey, Peter, remember the time?
What the?
Remember
the time?
Peter, remember?
You got TV shows like Family Guy where their majority of their punchlines are reliant on references. And consider all the early 2000s shows like Fairly Odd Parents that would throw in references that were kind of poorly integrated into the material purely for the sake of keeping children interested in by reminding them of other content that they actually liked as opposed to their show, which they may not have liked so much. So when most memes are, a relatable line of text over, a familiar image, you can see why that formula, people are getting a little fatigued with it all. And you've seen people that have become fatigued with this, and they take down the two pillars, they put their own sticker on familiarity pillar, and they put it back up. And now it's a familiarity with, memes and templates themselves. It's kind of a form of meta comedy. Take, for instance, the skeleton Grim Reaper guy meme. At one point, it was used as this weird, edgy, you think I'm quiet because I'm shy. I'm quiet because I'm planning ways to kill you or something. And then they took that tough guy template and your awareness of what those images used to be associated with, and they flipped it by putting, goofy, non-threatening text. And that's what made it, kind of ironic humor or meta humor, because it's self-aware and it's an ironic, almost satirical use of that template. And so the problem is, unless you are familiar with the source of that meme template, the new satirical use of it is not accessible for most people. And as a whole, this genre of ironic and meta humor is not accessible to most people, because now there's a new trend to keep up with, and that's the trend of memes. I think memes are like a car that is, it's at a quarter tank of gas, and it would have taken half a tank of gas to get to the nearest gas station, and so now that's stuck. So all it can do is just keep driving until it completely runs out and dies on the side of the road. And no one's gonna help that car. That car's surrounded by hyenas. Whenever people come by, they try to give it a little gas to get it to the gas station. The hyenas try to bite at people and they try to eat them. And so the people are just like, leave it alone, because I can't get to the car, and the people that are at the car are gonna eat me. So I'm done. I hope you enjoyed this. I do. I really hope that. And I am Adam. I'm Mr. Swede, and I've made this for you. And sorry it took so long. And I'm so sleepy. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.